here to discuss India's and world's approach towards the pressing problems that all of us are facing through this forum of G20. I'm very sure that the deliberations will come out, will lead all of us to some very good outcomes. In my brief 15 to 17 minutes presentation, I would like to share 4 approaches that India has taken under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, which could perhaps be good approaches to share among all of us and see whether many of those approaches could today help us solve some of the pressing problems that we are facing. The first is approach towards economic management. Second is approach towards digital economy. Third is our approach to regulation in digital economy. And fourth is the approach towards new technologies. These are the 4 approaches I would very briefly touch in this presentation. In this very turbulent period, over last almost 2 years now, the world has seen something which it has not seen for more than a century. And our response has been as per our textbooks in many geographies, many large economies. Contrasting that with the approach that India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji took is something which I thought it's good for all of us to think about and see whether some of these lessons are relevant for all of us. As the pandemic struck and the whole world kind of stopped, the economies came to a grinding halt, the classic response in many economies was to give the classical fiscal stimulus in which the checks were sent in many economies and directly money was transferred to the consumers. The hope was that consumption will pick up and that will lead to the economic revival. And yes, that happened. But simultaneously, the quantity of fiscal stimulus and combined that with the monetary stimulus created a situation where the balance sheets of Fed, the European Central Bank, Japanese Bank, many of the large, richer economies, the balance sheets have humongously grown. And that has really brought inflation which was unprecedented, unheard of throughout the world. What happens in some of the developed countries has repercussions all over the world, so it's relevant for all of us. In contrast, our Prime Minister took an approach where very focused consumption and large part of the fiscal space was allocated towards investment. So this combination of focused consumption, which was maximum targeted towards the vulnerable sections of the society, and investment, which basically gave a long-term productivity boost to the economy, this has really brought in a situation where today India is having a good, robust 6.9% growth, 7% growth, and very moderate inflation. Indian economy, with its challenges of importing energy, we traditionally have had anywhere between 4.5% to 7% as a run rate of inflation. So with that as the run rate, today we are at around 5.8 as the latest print, so which is a very good moderate inflation. So creating robust growth along with moderate inflation, that is the outcome of this approach. Can this approach give us new insights for managing similar situations anywhere else in the world? Yes, it can. That's why I'm sharing it with you. The results, if you look at 4 or 5 key parameters, the quarterly private investment in the country was somewhere around 180 billion US pre-COVID. Now that has come to 240 billion US quarterly investment. So that is a significant jump. Credit offtake has increased to practically multi-year high to almost 17% year on year. That's again a very good jump. The investment as a percentage of GDP has grown from 26% to 31%. That again is a good structural change in the economy. Capacity utilization, there are many business friends I know personally here. Capacity utilization in the Indian industrial sector has increased from anywhere 60-65% to 75 to 80%. So that is spurring a new capex cycle. Employment, formal employment, which is measured by our provident fund, the net formal investment, net formal employment is now almost 1.5 million net addition every month. So these are hard data, these are specific data points. Can the economists associated with this group use this and see whether the classical fiscal stimulus of sending out checks versus a combination of consumption and investment, what is the right way forward? Because this is not the last time we are facing a crisis. Crises will come. How we approach them will determine our future. The second approach is about digitalization. We all know, and all of us are approaching, all the countries are approaching digitalization in our own ways. We in India had a great advantage of a very robust, very vibrant software industry. Our Prime Minister took an approach, can we build a system, a digital ecosystem in which the monopoly of any big tech doesn't come in? Can the digital system be very inclusive? Can it create opportunities for multiple stakeholders? With that as the fundamental construct in his mind, he launched the Digital India program in 2015. I was sitting in the audience when that program was launched. And when I heard that vision, I could foresee that in 5 years, 6 years from now, India's example will be given everywhere in the world. And what was that approach? That approach was that create a public-private partnership. And what is that public-private partnership? The public-private partnership was using public funds, let us create certain platforms which are robust platforms, sector-specific, then let everybody else join those platforms and build solutions. I'll give 2 examples. The first example is of payment system. Using public funds, a payment platform was created. Everybody else was invited to join. I'm repeating this sentence 3 times so that the point is clearly brought in. So on this platform, the banks joined, insurance companies joined, practically every e-commerce joined, hundreds of startups joined, and 1.2 billion people joined. So that's the power of a platform. That's the power of a public-private partnership. And the resultant, again, numbers should be used to measure. We are in a business B20 meeting. Numbers speak for themselves. In the month of December, on an annualized, December which has just gone by, December 22, on an annualized basis, the digital payment transactions in India are 1.5 trillion US dollars. That's huge. That's more than many other countries. I wouldn't like to take any names here. Again, giving the second example of how a public-private partnership was created. With public funds, we created the platform called Co-Win to face the pandemic challenge. Multiple agencies joined it, the vaccine providers, the state governments, the clinics, hospitals, and once again 1.2 billion people joined this platform And as a result, a vaccination program where 2 billion doses were administered, the logistics of that many vaccine doses was managed, the scheduling of vaccine doses, the certificate of vaccination, everything was done using that public-private partnership, that digital public platform. So the approach that Prime Minister took was very different from approach many other countries have taken. The approach is to use public funds to create a robust platform and let everybody join that platform. This reduces the concentration, this reduces the monopoly, this democratizes the entire digital benefits. It is very inclusive approach, it is very democratic approach, and it's very sustainable long-term approach. I will not repeat the sentence fourth time. Thank you for being so patient. This approach has led us to what we call India Stack. You might have heard this name quite often. In 1.5 sentence, India Stack is a set of open APIs and public digital goods. Individually, they are very powerful in themselves, but when you put all of them together, you can create robust digital solutions which can solve population scale problems. That is India Stack. And our Honorable Prime Minister has authorized us to say that this India Stack is today offered to the entire world as our contribution, as India's contribution in a spirit of public service. Please feel free to use it. Feel free to approach. We have a proper website and everything is there. And our B20 Secretariat will be very glad to assist you in this. Thank you. And third approach is towards regulation. Digital economy has its own very complex challenges. Regulation that we saw in the industrial age or in the age preceding this digital age was built around certain principles which, in our opinion, do not hold true in the digital economy. For example, I'll take 2 examples here. The right of privacy, protecting personal data, the approach that the world was following was the GDPR approach. It's a great, very robust, time-tested, tested across multiple economies over many years now. What has been the experience? The experience has been, it's great when you are looking at purely at the protection of personal data. It's very good, very strong, very robust. On the opposite side, on the other hand, it has a huge pushback against innovation. So can we create a template which is very good for individual rights, very good for the society that we are living in, very important from the perspectives that we have in today's society. Simultaneously, it gives a big boost to innovation. It's not an easy task to do because every step that we take on one side will be detrimental to other side. And if we try to promote this, this goes down, and if we promote this, this goes down. So again, our Prime Minister took a very pragmatic approach. His point was that India today is the 3rd largest innovation ecosystem, where we have more than 100 unicorns, more than 84,000 registered startups. Can we create a system in which individual rights, society's needs, and innovation requirements, all the 3 can be managed? Why I said society's needs is, we in India are a family-oriented society. Many Western democracies are individual-oriented societies. We are very, very family-oriented society. So can we have our societal imperatives, individual imperatives, and innovation requirements, balance the three together, and create a law? And that's how we came up with the data, we call it Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. It is uploaded, and so far we have interacted with multiple internal and external shareholders, stakeholders, and the feedback has been excellent. Recently at Davos, some of the very big thought leaders, very important thought leaders, please don't mind if I sound a bit, okay, I'll not say it. Let me not say it. But without taking any names, one of the major thought leaders said that yes, this is the right template which world should now adopt. So that is the kind of appreciation this bill is now getting. The second, again, a similar bill was about telecom, because telecom is today the gateway to digital world. I'm running against the promised time. My apologies for that. Again, we have followed a very pragmatic approach under Prime Minister's leadership. He has given a very clear mandate that everything, implementation of the law should be digital. All dispute resolution should be online. So the approach has to be technology agnostic. Approach has to be something which will hold good for at least as technology keep changing, we should not be going back to the parliament again and again. So that is the approach towards regulation, which is a balance of society and individual rights with innovation, with equal emphasis to the both. The fourth point was approach to new technologies. Again, Prime Minister's mandate is whatever new technologies that we develop, we have to look at a public-private partnership approach. Because, as we all know from the business world, there are certain risks which are best taken by the government, and there are certain risks which are best allocated to the private sector. How pragmatic is the risk allocation will determine the success of the project. If the project is skewed towards, if the risks are skewed towards the private sector, quite likely that private sector partner will become bankrupt after a while. So no point in creating structures where government takes off every responsibility or private sector takes off every responsibility and put the entire responsibility on the other partner. So with that approach and that mandate, we took up many projects in the country. Prime Minister has actually laid out a very clear technological roadmap in all the ministries that we work. And each of these is created on a public-private partnership approach. I'll just give one example. We decided to develop our own 4G, 5G technology stack. It's not an easy task. There are only 5 countries in the world who have end-to-end 4G, 5G technology stack, telecom technology stack. When Prime Minister gave us this task in 2020, it was considered as maybe it will take many years, maybe it may not happen. But the engineers and our private and public partnership approach, that has given us a solution where the core was developed, invested by the public sector, public funds, and everything else sitting on it, the radio network, the billing system, everything else comes from the private partners. Again, that philosophy of having public investment with private components to it, that balances the risk. And today the solution is so robust that recently, initially it was tested for 1 million simultaneous calls, then it was tested for 5 million simultaneous calls, and very recently it has been successfully tested for 10 million simultaneous calls. And in this entire 2023, we'll be rolling it out on about 50 to 70,000 towers, sites, and then 2024 we'll be offering it to the world. So these are the four approaches I thought might be useful for all of us to think about and see what are the lessons we have for the world. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that beautiful story of the way you narrated it, of the way Indian economy, digitalization, technology, and the public-private partnership, all of it would serve as tremendous with tremendous value for the B20. As you have said that there is so much for India and the rest of the world to work together. We will take those as very, very important agenda for the B20 as we go along, and we'll turn to you from time to time to report back to you as to how we are progressing, as well as we would really request you to keep engaged and give us inputs on this as we go along. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had the pleasure, honor, and the opportunity of working with the Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, on many, many, many aspects. He has brought in a phenomenal business and government partnership in several areas of work, be it on the trade side, be it on the industry side, be it with the global community side. And it's been really a pleasure, an honor, and a great journey. And the B20 process, I'm sure he would give his inputs continuously and continue to inspire the confidence of Indian business looking up to the government in terms of continued engagement, partnership, a partnership approach between the government and the industry, which will be so valuable, and not only to India, but as we bring in the B20 plus countries into this process. With that, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Honorable Minister for Commerce and Industry, Textiles, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution of the Government of India, to give his address.
Thank you very much, Chandrajit. My colleagues, Shri Ashwini Vaishnav and Shri Som Prakash ji, the G20 Sherpa, Shri Amitabh Kant ji, several leaders from government who have joined us today. Of course, we have Mr. Pankaj Kumar, Anurag Jain on the dais, but we also have with us several illustrious senior colleagues in government. Mr. Kailash Nathan is here, Mr. Damu Ravi, Rajkumar, Muktesh. If I missed out some name, but I thought I must recognize the presence of senior leaders who have joined us both from the government and from the private sector. Of course, our G20 chairman of Tata Sons, Mr. Chandrasekaran. I don't know how he's going to balance his business requirements and the B20 responsibility, but truly somebody with a passion, with a heart to serve the nation through business. And I think we couldn't have found a better chair than you, Mr. Chandrasekaran, to lead this initiative. Other captains of industry, Sanjeev Bajaj. We have with us many who are in the room here. And I was wondering whether if I start taking names, it just goes on and on. We have Sanjeev Puri, Harshpati Singhania, Mr. Narendran. We have our vaccine lady, Suchitra. We have the Chris, Kamal, Kalyani trio of Ks over here. I can actually see so many friends in the room that instead of taking everybody's name, I must thank you all for your participation in this very important Inception meeting. I have a colleague with whom I've worked right since 2014, who was formerly the USTR, Mr. Mike Froman, who's also with us today. I'd like to recognize his presence. Lord Leicester has made it from UK, and several other distinguished ambassadors, government representatives from other world countries, very distinguished captains of industry, both from the Indian industry and international companies, friends from the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to share with you that the Honorable Chief Minister, who was to be with us, had a bereavement in the family and is unable to join us. On behalf of all of us, we convey our condolences to the family, to the Chief Minister, and pray that the departed soul rests in peace. I'd like to convey my grateful thanks to the government of Gujarat, to Chief Minister Bhupendra Bhai Patel, to all his colleagues, and the people of Gujarat for the very warm welcome and hospitality that I'm sure all of us have experienced in this wonderful city of Gandhinagar, for all the lovely arrangements. And it's very appropriate that we are kickstarting the B20 process in Gujarat, in Gandhinagar. It's a perfect place to start a business engagement, because business, in a way, runs in the veins of every Gujarati. If I may use a colloquial Gujarati terminology, I'll translate it for our friends from abroad. But when you meet any person from Gujarat, he will say, "Ama dhando su thai." What will be the business potential of this? What money can be made out of this? What is the outcome of what we are trying to do? Dhando ni vaat karo. And dhando is in a very positive sense, in a sense of economic activity. It's not just making money for, you can go and talk to a farmer. Even a farmer is able to relate to business in this state, because he understands that if he improves his productivity, he increases the cash crop component, he knows that that will be good for his family, for his lifestyle. And therefore, a state which has entrepreneurship in its genes, a state which has produced visionaries and luminaries like, for that matter, Jamshedji Tata or Dhirubhai Ambani, and all the other very illustrious names in the business world, in the political world, who have come from Gujarat, have shown us the way. And the fact that we are in Mahatma Mandir, the Mahatma always believed that business has to have a trusteeship concept, has to recognize its contribution to society. The Mahatma always encouraged business. Mahatma Gandhi was never anti-business. He believed that economic growth, economic prosperity will help the nation's prosperity, will help everybody in the nation get a fair share in prosperity. And therefore, in every respect, I'd like to compliment CII for choosing Gandhinagar, Gujarat, and within that, Mahatma Mandir, for this very important meeting. Friends, today is also the anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, one of the leading lights of our freedom struggle. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose had a vision of prosperity for the nation. And while I pay my tributes to him, I also believe that the new India today reflects that aspiration of every single citizen of India for a better future for him or her, and for their families. India is working in this 75th year of independence as we celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to prepare the roadmap for the next 25 years to make India a developed nation by 2047, when we shall be celebrating 100 years of independence. The Prime Minister, on 15th of August in his Independence Day address, laid down his vision of a developed India, an India which unshackles the colonial past, but recognizing the strong strengths of India's rich culture, rich heritage, tradition, family value systems, will work with the collective energies of 1.4 billion people working with a sense of duty, working with unity and integrity as a nation, as one nation, with a collective agenda to take prosperity to 1.4 billion people and improve the lives of every person in the country. And that, friends, is what drives India in its economic vision, in its vision for business, and in its vision for inclusive growth. I was just doing some numbers, waiting for my turn. And you'll be amazed to see the India story of the last 3 decades. As many of you may be aware, we started the first set of business reforms in 1991. In fact, modest steps were taken in 1991, but even those modest steps look big to all of us. Even a simple thing like removing industrial licensing, which was great for the nation, was considered to be revolutionary at that point of time. The Indian economy was barely $270 billion in 1991. Today, 3 decades later, the Indian economy is $3.2 trillion. That's nearly 11.8 times or 12 times growth in US dollar terms in the last 30 years. Friends, this is despite several black swan events, including the pandemic, the once-in-a-century pandemic, which took away a lot of the potential growth, a lot of the potential opportunities. We've seen the financial crisis, we've seen oil crisis come in again and again. With all the difficulties, India was able to grow 12x in the last 30 years. When we talk of making India a developed nation, when we talk of the Indian economy going to 30 trillion, 35 trillion, even elementary simple maths on a business as usual case will take us there. But given the change in mindset, the change in thinking, the transformational steps taken to develop infrastructure in the country, to improve the levels of integrity in every sphere of life in the country, the focused efforts to have inclusive growth for every section of society without discrimination, reaching the remotest corners of India, right up to the tribal and indigenous population benefiting from economic prosperity, and the international outlook that Prime Minister Modi has brought to the table. So the 4 I's: massive investment on infrastructure, focus on high levels of integrity, inclusive development, and international outlook will actually add tremendous wings to help the Indian economy possibly do even better than the numbers on a business as usual case. India today, as was mentioned by earlier speakers, has adopted innovation. We have an inspiring, very decisive leadership. And we have been able to instill huge aspirations in every single young person born in this country. Thanks to the digitally connected world, the Digital India mission, which Prime Minister Modi launched right up front in 2015, and which is taking wings as we progress, as Ashwini-ji just shared with all of us. In fact, the levels of connectivity that we have on telecom today and what are being planned over the next year or two will catapult us to amongst the top 5 or 6 countries in terms of technology going forward. And I believe all of these steps will help us not only grow the economy, but grow it smartly, grow it in a manner that nobody is left behind. And I would urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to imagine that having taken care of the basic needs of every family, you may be aware that Prime Minister Modi has ensured that not a single starvation death takes place in the country, even in the worst situation of the COVID pandemic. Even when we were implementing the strictest lockdown anywhere in the world. Through several government initiatives, through a massive food grain program, through which 800 million people were provided more than adequate food grains across the country, India has been able to ensure what was once upon a time the fear of many, how India will cope with the COVID, to convert that to a story where India becomes the bright spot in the world. About 35 million families have been given a free house, a proper home with electricity, with cooking gas connection, with digital connectivity, with a toilet, with all the basic amenities. These were the people at the lowest rung of the pyramid, the most deserving, yet over the years neglected, so that they can come up in life. Farmers' income has been transformed, has been increased over the last decade. And all of these initiatives have collectively ensured that every Indian today can aspire for the better things of life. He has moved away from the troubles of his day-to-day health, education, healthcare, his needs of food, clothing, shelter. Once the common citizen moves out of these concerns, and as many of you may be aware, we are also running the world's largest free healthcare program, through which 500 million Indians are eligible for free healthcare. And by the way, it's a successful program, unlike other parts of the world where healthcare initiatives could not take off as well as they have in India. With all these basic needs taken care of, we have an aspirational society. Thanks to digital connectivity, almost every home has a smartphone, has a television set. They are seeing what's happening in the rest of the world. And that fire in the belly, that hunger for better things of life, that aspiration to have maybe a dishwasher, with nuclear families and more working women coming into the workforce, we'll need maybe 150, 200 million dishwashers and washing machines and dryers over the next 10, 15 years. I dare say there is no other market in the world as large as the India opportunity today. And therefore, to all the friends, both from Indian industry and from around the world, India would like to give out the message. India would like to share with the world the big opportunity for economic growth, for powering the world economy also to grow, for collaborations, for cooperation. We can remain competitive and also collaborate and collectively see how we can help serve the world with India as your base. And friends, I'd like to just share one small example. A British company making earth-moving material was manufacturing in England, serving 10 countries around the world with a modest turnover. They came to India a few years ago, a couple of decades ago. Today, because of competitiveness of Indian manufacturing, because of their ability to launch newer products through Indian design engineers and innovation, they are supplying to 110 countries around the world from India at affordable, competitive prices. And today all their new launches also come out of India. Apple, another success story. They're already at about 5 to 7% of their manufacturing in India. If I'm not mistaken, they are targeting to go up to 25% of their manufacturing. They launched the most recent models from India, manufactured in India, and our Honorable Minister is carrying it with him, a made in India Apple phone, the latest model. And with that, will follow the ecosystem, the supply chain. And India offers a rule of law, transparent government policies. We don't have opaque business models. We don't have hidden subsidies. We don't have anything done in the government which is not known to the public at large. Friends, for less than 10 cents, you can take out every paper in the government of India that any of us may be generating and know exactly what the government is doing, is working towards. And Prime Minister Modi has set the bar high. And therefore, as I was discussing with my colleague Mr. Chandra a few minutes ago, we have an opportunity in B20 as we work together, and Ashwini ji has rightly shared Prime Minister Modi's vision of being a responsible global citizen, be it in the sphere of climate change, be it in the sphere of making available all these digital goods for public use across the world, digital public infrastructure which can help the world and other less developed or developing nations also go up the development ladder much faster. I think Prime Minister Modi's vision of care for the world as he cares for every single citizen of India, for economic stability in the world as he works to create the strong foundations of the Indian economy, of peace and dialogue around the world, for more orderly growth, for more humane approach, as he works in India to take a better quality of life, for ease of living, for ease of working, for the smallest and most underprivileged sections of society, for our MSMEs, for those micro entrepreneurs, for those farmers toiling in those small fields. He brings for the world the vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. And most appropriately, that is the theme of G20 in India. One earth, one family, one future. And we wish to take this opportunity to inspire the world to care for each other, to inspire the world to have a greater degree of dialogue, a greater degree of concern, both for the planet and for the future of our children. As Mahatma Gandhi had said, we have inherited this world as trustees, and it's our duty to leave behind a better world for the next generation. We have to respect intergenerational equity. We cannot arrogate to ourselves the right to use up the resources of the world. And therefore, as we work towards more sustainable lifestyles, as we work to ensure the circular economy succeeds, and I must share with you, India is one of the top 5 countries, you were telling me, Anurag ji, in terms of adopting and implementing our environmental goals. We are probably the only G20 country who regularly files our UNFCCC report every 2 years on our achievements. We have already exceeded our 2030 goal in terms of renewable energy, where we had said we'll be 40% installed capacity through clean energy. We've achieved that 9 years ahead of schedule in 2021. We've taken each one of the sustainable development goals very seriously, as we hope the G20 will when they deliberate on these important subjects. I'm sure businesses will adopt a sustainable future, a green future in your business practices, and together we will all drop an agenda, a permanent agenda, and use this opportunity of the B20 in India along with the G20 to actually look at how responsible businesses can raise the bar, can make it more sustainable, can bring innovation. And our startups are doing some wonderful work to make new technologies affordable, available to the common man, and collectively work towards an equitable future agenda for the people of the world. Mahatma Gandhi had once said, and I'd like to quote, "The difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems." Friends, we have a great opportunity before us. We have a great opportunity, as Prime Minister Modi often tells us, to work in collaboration with each other. And as each one of us works together, as each one of us takes one step forward, the world will take 7 billion steps forward. And that, friends, will drive the world to make it a better place to live in. I am indeed delighted that the B20 has taken off to this wonderful start on this beautiful morning in Gandhinagar. I wish the B20 well in all its efforts and work in the coming months, so that by August we have a robust framework on which, from India, a message goes to the world, a message of responsibility, a message of care and concern, a message of togetherness and oneness, a message that we will all work together for a better future for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for another great Indian story, and how we could all collaborate and work together and really take some of the success stories that were mentioned of India to the rest of the world, and also how businesses can really contribute immensely. I'd like to really thank all our three ministers present here, Shri Piyush Goyal, Shri Ashwini Vaishnav, Shri Som Prakash ji, the G20 Sherpa, of course the B20 chair. We have the DPIIT secretary, the chief secretary, and also of course the president CII, and all the overseas and Indian speakers and Indian and overseas delegates. Really thank you for participating in this opening session, which sets the tone of B20. Many names were mentioned by all speakers about people who have come up front to really make this a great success story. But it has been also a partnership of different kinds that we have seen over the last few weeks of hectic work between the government of Gujarat, the G20 team, the DPIIT, and of course the CII team. And I must mention from Gujarat, Ms. Mona Kandar, who was leading very quietly, a lot of work between her and her team. The Principal Secretary Industries, I did see her sitting there. The G20 team, people in the background, I did see Mr. Pardesi and Mr. Ashish Sinha and many others who were constantly engaged. Of course, the DPII team is Rupa Datta, who is the Principal Economic Advisor, pretty much involved, and of course the CII team. These were the people behind, but they really made it happen with a huge amount of partnership that went in seeing to it that coordination was done well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We have a small token ceremony of appreciation for some of the dignitaries present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your warm, thankful note. And I now request Mr. N. Chandrasekaran to kindly do the honors of presenting the mementos. Foremost, I request Mr. N. Chandrasekaran to present the memento to Honorable Union Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, sir. Will request to present the memento to Honorable Union Minister Shri Ashwini Vaishnav. These are ODOPK gifts presented to the esteemed dignitaries.
There are two elements to this gifts which are being given, which I'd like to highlight. One is that the Honorable Prime Minister has asked all the districts of India to specialize in one product which is made by traditional craftsmen of India. So over about 750 districts, each one of them specializing in one product. So the product which is being distributed today is a product from Gujarat, one of the districts of Gujarat, which is the artwork done by the traditional artists of Gujarat. That is the one district, one product movement of India. So these are traditional artists from India, one district, one product. Those of you who are staying in the Leela can see the work which is being done by the artists at the Leela Hotel itself. The second big story is that 2023 is the year of millets. We are moving away from water-consuming crops to millets, which are the superfoods, which are full of iron, protein, zinc. And this year, every single meal that we are doing during G20, every single gift that we are giving comprises of millets. So millets will form a very, very integral part. This is about making a behavioral change to the lives and citizens of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherpa, for sharing the insights. That's wonderful. We'll request to present the memento to Shri Som Prakash, Honorable Minister of State for Commerce and Industry. Next, we'll request you to present to Shri Amitabh Khan. Yeah. Okay. Next to Shri Pankaj Kumar. Anurag Jain, sir. Chandrajit Banerjee, sir. We'll request Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee to kindly present memento to Mr. N. Chandrasekaran, sir. We thank all the esteemed dignitaries on the dais for their august presence and kindly request you to step forward for a group photograph. Thank you, everyone. It was indeed to have you all over here. We have heard the eminent speakers from the industry and government about the process of achieving success in B20. We shall now hear about the priorities of India in B20. We have a special plenary with eminent speakers. So do not leave the room. We request you to be kindly seated so that we can start the special plenary session on B20 India priorities. Thank you.